Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Andrea and I have been selling on Etsy for 8 years. I have an embroidery business on Etsy, and this YouTube channel is just where I share things I've learned in the past, things I'm currently learning, day in the lives. Basically, we just talk about Etsy. So if that is what you are interested in, you are in the right place. Today specifically, I'm going to be walking you through 3 of my most costly business mistakes. So obviously this video is not very fun to talk about. These are moments that I'd rather not relive, but I really think that it's important to talk about this kind of stuff online in a, I guess, social media, in the social media world. It's important to talk about this stuff so that other people can avoid making the same mistakes, and so that you can just feel comforted that if you've made a big mistake, several of mine are several thousands of dollars. If you've made a business mistake or you are currently going through a business mistake, you are not alone and you will likely see the other side of it. So this is just meant to be an encouragement or a lesson in mistakes that you should not make. So that is what we are going to be talking about today. Okay, so we're just gonna jump right in. Like I said, I'm gonna cover 3 business mistakes that I have made. One thing I want you guys to know before we jump in is that the first one is money that I actually lost. We lost several thousands of dollars through this, and I'm gonna walk you guys through what it was, why that happened, all that sort of stuff. And then the next 2 are things that I was not losing at the time. I wasn't losing the money as in it was coming out of my bank account, but I was leaving a ton of money on the table. And I feel like those end up being the even more costly business decisions. If there's anything I've learned over the past 8 years, it's that money that you leave on the table or opportunities that you don't take can leave you losing or missing out on even more revenue than money that you actually lose, even though the money that you actually lose stings a lot worse somehow. It still stings for me to talk about the first one, and the last 2 are just oh man, I should have done that way sooner, but they don't sting near as much. Hopefully you can relate to this if you've ever lost money in the at making business decisions. Okay, so the first business mistake that we are going to talk about that I made is running Facebook ads. I feel like I've heard this over and over again because you have the people that are I ran Facebook ads and saw 800% in return and now we're gajillionaires. And then you have the people, which is much more like my story, that say I ran Facebook ads and I lost a lot of money. The problem is that I feel like in the social media world, the TikTok, Instagram Reel world, the people that are making the money are the ones talking, and you really have to pry it out of someone to get out the fact that they lost money on Facebook ads. And normally they're just oof, yeah, that was bad for me too. And so that's why I do think it is important to talk about it, because I don't want just the people that's going really well. Obviously, I'm very happy for them. I wish that was our case, but I do think it's important to for other people to know that it's not always that way. It's not always that way, if that makes sense. So for us, I'm just gonna share with you guys actual numbers and kind of what happened. We hired a Facebook agency, or a Facebook ad agency. It was a small business. I personally knew the owner. They came very highly reviewed, very reputable business. This wasn't some scam, basically, even though it feels like it now. Because I realize that whenever someone says, I hired an ad agency, you're well, who were you hiring? I hired someone I personally knew that had their own ad agency business, and I knew several of their past customers and they gave them very good reviews. So that was one of those things where I was I felt pretty confident in the people I was hiring. I do think that what happened, I can't decide what happened. We lost over $10,000 with them. Which was a huge bummer. We did not see a single dime in return. It's not we did not see a single dime. They failed to the point that I didn't even know this level of failure was possible for Facebook ads. Seriously, we might have gotten 3 orders from it. That's not even a joke. They failed so miserably. And so the appeal to hiring the agency is that they do a lot of the work for you. And looking back, they didn't, I don't know if it was because I was considered a smaller client for them. because they obviously deal with people with huge ad budgets. And so even though we lost 10 grand, that was like still over the course of like 2 or 3 months. This was not over the course of a year. This was like November, December, January. We lost over 12,000, but they actually refunded 2,000 because I was like, hey, this isn't working at all, because basically it's a long story long, but we ended up losing over 10 grand over the course of 3 months. So it was like a it wasn't like a whole year or 2 years at a time. Like we lost that pretty quickly. And so long story long, I didn't even know that they could go that bad. And so that was a huge bummer. It also came at like a very hard point in our lives. We were just newly married, and my husband was still looking for a job. And so I was like I was the full income source. So to take that kind of business loss whenever you're relying on your Etsy shop for all the income was very hard. That was a very like, whoa, okay. So anyways, that was that. I don't know. I'll be really gun shy on Facebook ads for a very, very long time. I don't think it was just the ads that were the problem. I really do think it was I don't think it was Facebook's fault. I don't think it was the Facebook ads inherently don't return on profit. I think it was the ads that we were running, like the literal content. And then also I think that they were not managed well. And the only thing I can really think of is that we were like, would have been considered a smaller client for them. And so I just think my account didn't get the attention that it needed to get in order to be profitable. So, yeah, I don't know that I wouldn't recommend running Facebook ads. I certainly wouldn't recommend this particular agency, which is a bummer because like I said, I personally knew the owner. I've met him several times. And yeah, so that's a bummer, but that was something that came at like the worst possible time. And I guess it wasn't the worst possible time. There would be worse times, but not a great time, and would be a pretty big mistake for our business. The second mistake, like I said, is more about money that we kind of left on the table. And if you've been following this channel at all, you could probably guess that I was gonna talk about this. You could probably know that this is something that I was gonna say. So waiting to do SEO for Etsy. So I put this off for a very, very long time. I've said on this channel before, I said earlier in this video, I have been an Etsy seller for 8 years, in like over 8 years. And so the platform has changed a lot over those 8 years. It is a very, very different platform than it was before. And before you could make money on the platform without caring about SEO at all. In fact, it was not even in the conversation, even among the most profitable of Etsy sellers. When I first started my Etsy shop, SEO was not talked about in any way. It wasn't implemented. You just put your handmade goods up on the site and then hoped, I guess. I don't even know, like, I guess maybe there wasn't as much competition. I don't really know, but basically this wasn't a thing that people were doing then. And so I started my shop with not having to do it. And then whenever it started to enter the conversation, I just kept putting it off. I put it off for a very, very long time, probably like 2 or 3 years past what I should have put it off for. Like I should have been doing it much, much sooner. And when I did finally implement it, so basically, when did I implement it? I think 2020. I had a not great year for my Etsy shop in 2019. And I was like, okay, so that was whenever I had to like stare down SEO and be like, all right, now it's time. Like it's time because I chose not to go get a bachelor's degree. I chose to pursue this over my photography business. And now it needs to make enough money for me to live. And so we need to do what is necessary, which staring me in the face was SEO. And then 2020 happened. And so I had a lot of time at home and I completely revamped my SEO and I ended up doubling my revenue from 2019 to 2020. So like literally, and I was still like a I was still a like mid 5-figure shop. And so doubling it was not like I went from $5 to $10. So that was a pretty significant difference, and it made a big difference for like what I could do with my Etsy shop moving forward, obviously. So that was the, I guess, like my like, oh my word. I had been putting this off, and literally it was a huge catalyst for me for Etsy, because we were getting all of our orders from Etsy anyways. And so to really double down on things that we're already selling and optimize the crap out of them for SEO just really was like hitting the skyrocket button. I'm not a person, and if you hang around this channel, you know this, I'm not a person that believes in like secrets about Etsy, and like if you like there's a secret button and what the top 1% doesn't want you to know. I'm not that kind of person. And so it does take work, and you won't hear me say that it doesn't take work. But in my opinion, it is absolutely worth it. And definitely one of the biggest mistakes we had made was putting it off. I can guarantee you that had I not put it, I lost more money on this than I did on the Facebook ads. I guarantee you. Like there is no doubt in my mind that if I could replay what it would have looked like to have done Etsy SEO as soon as it was entering the conversation, or even just a year later rather than waiting 3 years later, I guarantee you I lost more in revenue than I did on Facebook ads. There's no doubt in my mind, probably 10 times more. And so that is definitely one, but for some reason, like I said, it doesn't sting as bad. I guess it's just because the cash isn't actually coming out of your account. And it's like a slow thing. And also I realized it now, like, 3-4 years later. But definitely that would be a big business mistake that was really costly, was waiting to implement SEO. And I definitely need to remember that moving forward. Like when there's something that's on the scene, that's staring me down, like, hey, you need to do this. I need to not put it off for so long, because that particular mistake is probably the most costly one I've ever made. The last mistake we're going to talk about is a mistake, again, that was more like missed income, but it's basically we did not focus on getting our supply costs down until several years into business. So this is something that I am now a huge advocate for. I tell people in small business, in retail, like cost of goods. I think another thing that makes it hard is that online, a lot of business education and stuff is centered around service-based business. And so cost of goods are much less of a thing for a service-based business than it is for like a product-based business. And so it's not talked about that often how important it is to keep your cost of goods price down, to keep your supply costs down. Obviously, this is applicable to service businesses as well, but not as applicable as it is to like a product-based business. So anyways, we waited several years we waited several years to actually focus on getting items for cheaper. And it ended up being a crazy profitable decision when we did. And therefore, like, waiting all those years to do this was definitely a mistake that I made that was very costly. My dad was in business for 40 years. I come from like a whole family of small business owners. And so this is things that we like to talk about. And my dad had always told me, like, hey, you got to get your supply costs down. He always said, his like one-liner is, you don't make money when you sell it, you make money when you buy it. Basically meaning like your sell price, and we talk about this on this channel, has a cap. For a product-based business, it's not like you have to charge somewhere within the range of market value for your product. You can't just be like, I want to make more, so I'm going to charge $800 for a jacket, right? Like, a jacket is only worth so much. And so getting your supply costs down, getting your buy costs down raises your profit, and it raises your profit easier than convincing someone that they should pay $800 for your jacket, if that makes any sense. Speaking of jackets, just one example from our shop of a way that getting our supply costs down really helped us is we sell Sherpa jackets. It's like our most popular listing all time by far. And so we sell jackets. We still sell like over 500 a year. And back in the day when we first listed them, we were paying $22 per jacket, and now we only pay $9. And so and over the years, we have actually raised the price of them, and we have been getting them for cheaper. And so you can see how big of a difference that would make whenever you are making what, an extra $11 per jacket. No, more than that, an extra $13 per jacket. Even if we were only selling 100, that's an extra $1,300 a year to do literally nothing different. So that we're talking about like thousands of dollars every year just in getting supply costs down. And we were doing it took so minimal effort. And so that is something that was really, really low work, high return, was getting items for us, like buying them cheaper. And we actually have several examples of doing similar things with other items throughout our shop, where just getting the supply costs down drastically raised the amount that we were able to make without having to raise the price and do the marketing necessary for convincing someone that they should actually pay $13 more for the Sherpa so that I can make more, if that makes sense. One more thing on that, you can do that in a lot of ways. You can get your supply costs down in a lot of ways. And so it's definitely worth looking into, definitely worth looking at where you are spending a lot of money and finding other sources for things that you're selling over and over again. One piece of advice I give on this channel all the time is to start with your 5 best sellers. Because obviously if you're watching this video and you have 80 products, you're like, now I have to go find a new source for all 80 of these products? No, you don't. We didn't do that. I don't recommend doing that. Start with your top 5 most popular listings and see if there's a way that you can cut the supply costs or the equipment costs or the time. Basically, you can weed out all the, trim off the fat of those particular items so that you can make your highest return. So basically you are doing the same amount of work, but still making more money without having to charge more for your customers. Okay, so all that being said, those are my 3 biggest mistakes that are my 3 most costly mistakes that I have made in my Etsy shop business. I do want to drive home the fact that you can make a lot of mistakes in an Etsy business and still be just fine. I just listed probably $100,000, maybe not that much. Let's say 50. That would probably be a conservative estimate though. I just listed probably $50,000 worth of mistakes, and here we are just fine running the business now. And so just remember that you can really make a lot of mistakes. I get comments literally every single day on this channel of people that are so overwhelmed, they won't start an Etsy shop because they're too afraid of making mistakes, or way too afraid of making mistakes. And I am telling you that if you start, and if you do well with your Etsy shop, you will look back and count the not starting sooner as your most costly mistake. I can guarantee it, because these mistakes you can always, not always, there are obviously mistakes that people can't bounce back from, but you have a lot more forgiveness in your business than you think you do. And so don't let the thought of mistakes stop you from starting a side hustle, starting a business, creating another revenue stream for your family, because seriously, I do think that if you decide to take the leap and do it, you will look at not starting sooner as a bigger mistake than starting now and then maybe overpaying a little bit on postage or whatever. So don't let them stop you. Also, it's worth noting that these are mistakes are kind of consistent with how much money you have to put into them. And so when you're starting out, just try and be as conservative as possible as far as spending money, and just start learning and start making mistakes and keep failing forward, and you will definitely be able to grow your Etsy shop regardless. I guess not regardless, but grow your Etsy shop in spite of the setbacks that you are definitely going to have, because that's just part of running a business. So all that being said, I hope this video was encouraging to you that you can make mistakes and still be totally fine. And yeah, all of that being said, thank you so much for watching. We talk about Etsy on this channel. If you're interested in learning more about Etsy and all that good stuff, make sure to binge watch and subscribe. And thank you so much for being here.